So I be hearing all the time like, oh, it don't look like you be cooking. You always eat out. I always eat at home. I don't eat nowhere else. So I gotta cook.
Yeah, she iced my shit again. I definitely can't tag her. There must have been an angel by my side.
He strangled her with his bare hands, put his boot on her neck until she stopped breathing, and then crashed his own truck to make it look like an accident. That's not a movie plot. That's exactly what police say happened on a highway ramp between Indiana and Ohio just days ago. And the reason he gave for killing her? She wouldn't stop talking. If your jaw just hit the floor, stay with me, because this story gets even more disturbing the deeper you go. But first, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon, because Crime Files drops cases like this all the time, and you do not want to miss what's coming next. Okay, let's get into it. Her name was Shanae Robinson. She was 36 years old, from Indianapolis, and if you ever sat in her chair, you already know her name, because Shanae was a barber. Not just any barber, either. She worked at All Stars Barbershop for almost a decade, and everybody there called her Mocha the Barber. That nickname wasn't just a cute thing people said. It was who she was in that shop. She'd built a whole decade of relationships there, cutting hair, cracking jokes, being the person people looked forward to seeing. People who knew her describe her as one of those people who lit up a room the second she walked in. Funny, a little crazy in the best way. Lovable. One of her co-workers, a fellow barber named Terry Gray, said straight to reporters. He called her probably one of the coolest people that you will ever meet. He said she was a little sis, like she was actual family in that shop, not just a co-worker clocking in and out. That's not something people say about just anybody. That's something you say about someone who genuinely made your workplace feel like home. When news of her death hit the barbershop, the mood shifted instantly. Customers didn't know what to do with themselves. People just started leaving flowers at her empty chair. Her actual workstation, the place where she'd spent 10 years building a life and a reputation. That's the kind of impact this woman had. She wasn't just cutting hair. She was part of the fabric of that shop, and now there's a hole there that isn't going to close anytime soon. Now here's the man police say ended her life. LaDavid Shaw, 38 years old, a truck driver from Jackson, Mississippi. On the night of June 24th, a Wednesday, Shaw was driving his semi-truck near the Indiana-Ohio state line. Somewhere along that stretch of highway, something happened between him and Shanae, and whatever it was, it ended with her dead. Here's how the night actually unfolded. Around 8:15 in the evening, deputies got a call about what looked like a routine deadly crash. A semi-truck had gone down on the entrance ramp from US 40 to westbound I-70, right at the state line between Indiana and Ohio. On the surface, this looked like something deputies handle all the time. A truck crash, maybe a blown tire, maybe a driver who fell asleep at the wheel. Nobody responding to that call had any idea what they were actually about to walk into. When Wayne County deputies got to the scene, they found a woman's body inside that crashed semi. And that's the moment to stop being a routine crash response and became something much bigger. Here's where it gets chilling. Witnesses say they saw Shaw walk away from that crashed semi-truck and head straight into a nearby travel center, the Petro Travel Center in New Paris, Ohio. And what he did next is honestly hard to wrap your head around. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't calling for help. He wasn't flagging anyone down. He walked into that truck stop and took a shower. Investigators later confirmed this. He showered at the travel center before deputies ever caught up with him. Think about that for a second. A woman was dead inside his truck, and his next move was to clean himself up like it was any other night on the road. Meanwhile, word went out of Preble County, Ohio deputies to help locate the driver. They found him at that Petro Travel Center. And during that encounter, Shaw told him something that changed everything. He said a female occupant of his truck had been killed. Not that there had been an accident. Not that someone got hurt in the crash. He told them she'd been killed. That's when things escalated fast. Deputies moved to detain him, and Shaw did not go quietly. This wasn't a moment of quiet resignation or shock. It was a full-on fight. Court records say deputies had to tase him multiple times just to get him under control. A K-9 unit was brought in, and Shaw was bitten by the dog before they could finally get him in handcuffs. And even once he was cuffed, it didn't stop there. Once he was in the back of a patrol car, he kept fighting, kicking the interior, hitting the divider, even lunging at an officer. He caused enough damage to that first cruiser that deputies had to move him into a different vehicle entirely. On the way to the Preble County Jail, he was still kicking the center divider. This was a man fighting law enforcement with everything he had, every step of the way. Eventually, Shaw was taken to a hospital for minor injuries he'd sustained, then transported and booked into the Preble County Jail. And this is where the investigation truly split into two directions. Wayne County, Indiana handling the scene where Shanae's body was found, and Preble County, Ohio handling the suspect and the criminal charges. 5 different agencies ended up involved in piecing this case together. The Wayne County Coroner's Office, the Montgomery County, Ohio Coroner's Office, the Wayne County, Indiana Sheriff's Office, the Preble County Sheriff's Office, and the Preble County Coroner's Office. That's how serious and how coordinated this response became, all because a routine crash turned out to be something else entirely. And then comes a twist that turns this from a crash investigation into something far darker than anyone imagined when that first call came in. According to court records filed in Eaton Municipal Court, Shaw admitted, in his own words, that he strangled Shanae with his hands because she wouldn't shut up. Read that again. That was the reason he gave. Not self-defense. Not an argument that spiraled out of control in the heat of the moment during a struggle. He said she wouldn't stop talking, and his response was to strangle a human being to death with his hands. But it doesn't end there. Court documents state that after strangling her, he then put his boot on her neck, on someone who was already dying or already dead. And then, according to his own admission, he made a calculated decision. He didn't panic and call police. He didn't try to render aid. He got back into a semi-truck, and he crashed it on purpose, in an attempt to stage her death as if it had been caused by the wreck instead of by him. Investigators say the semi was crashed into the shoulder area of that entrance ramp, and it was only because bystanders saw him walking away from the scene toward the travel center that deputies were able to track him down at all. Let that sink in for a second. This wasn't a crime of pure impulse that ended the moment it happened. There was a before, whatever led to him strangling her, and there was an after, a cold, deliberate attempt to manufacture a cover story using his own truck as a prop. That kind of thinking, that kind of composure right after taking a life, is what makes this case sit so differently than a lot of others we cover. An autopsy was conducted at the Montgomery County Coroner's Office to confirm Shanae's identity and to determine, officially, how she died. Wayne County Coroner Brent Meadows released a statement calling it a deeply tragic case, and said his office was committed to a thorough and professional investigation alongside their law enforcement partners, while asking for patience as they worked to confirm her identification and notify her family. That's the reality behind every headline like this. There's a coroner's office having to piece together an identity, and there's a family somewhere who has no idea yet that their world is about to change. Shaw was ultimately and formally charged in Eaton Municipal Court with murder, tamper with evidence, and resisting arrest. That tampering with evidence charge is important. It's not just an assumption from investigators that he tried to cover this up. It's built directly into the charges against him, tied to that stage crash. He remains held in the Preble County Jail. And in the middle of all this, back in Indianapolis, people who actually knew Shanae are trying to process what happened to her. One person close to the barbershop put it in words that hit hard, calling her death another case of domestic violence, saying flatly that it just never should have happened. Now, it hasn't been publicly confirmed exactly what the relationship was between Shaw and Shanae, or how she ended up riding in his truck that night. That's part of what makes this case still feel unfinished. There are pieces of the story that haven't been made public yet, and may not be for a while as the case moves through the courts. So now we're left with the questions that matter more than any court date, more than any charge sheet. What actually happened in that truck before he snapped? Was this really just about her not being quiet? Or was there something building for miles before that moment? Some tension neither of them said out loud until it was too late? What kind of person's very first instinct after killing someone isn't panic, isn't guilt, isn't even trying to help, but calculated plan to fake an accident and walk into a truck stop to shower like nothing happened? Where does that kind of coldness come from? And how many warning signs, if there were any, might have existed before this night that nobody was ever able to see? Shanae Robinson should still be in that barber chair right now, making someone laugh between haircuts, building toward another decade at a shop that clearly loved her back. Instead, her family, her co-workers, and everyone who ever called her Mocha the Barber are left grieving someone taken in the most senseless, avoidable way possible. If this story moved you even a little, do me a favor. Like this video, subscribe, and turn on that bell notification, because Crime Files is where these stories get told right, with the details that actually matter. We'll be back with the next one soon.